Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. This is The Viewpoint. My name is Mike Migu, and now we are getting into the thick of it. My guests are already in studio. I'm joined by Dr. John Mukundi, who is a political analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And Mheshimiwa Sosion, who is a former nominated MP and former NAT Secgen. Karibu sana.
And former CAS.
Former CAS. How are you doing?
Don't forget all the titles.
Uko salama?
Yeah, I'm good.
Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you.
What, so far, with the events happening around political scene, what has stood out for you?
Well, I think the key thing of this administration was transforming Kenya. And fixing what had not been fixed before and what had been deliberately damaged, from agriculture to MSMEs, ICT, housing, UHC. And I think if you're not new in Kenya, and now you know, Kenya has surplus sugar produced locally. And I think the first time since Moi administration, it was during Moi administration that we started seeing the gods of businesses importing sugar and killing local farmers and local investors. It continued during Kibaki. It was worse during Uhuru Kenyatta's administration. But within 2 years, just only with one thing, subsidized fertilizers. The cane farmers have realized enhanced production, and almost all the factories have roared back to operation, and we are getting about 84,000 tons per month, while the national consumption is 40,000 per month. That means we are able to store the surplus 44,000 for the period that the factories will stop operating for annual services. So meaning we are potential as a country to be self-sufficient and export. So it's interesting. Within 2 years, we can demonstrate that Kenyan cane farmers can actually export their sugar. And what it means is that if the government can work on pricing and taxation and all that, because imported sugar attracted duty. Now that these are produced locally, there is no duty. Then it is possible to bring down the prices of sugar in our supermarket and on the shelves for our Kenyan consumers. The turnaround in the agricultural sector that we've seen, when Kenya Kwanza administration took over, the number of bags of maize produced annually was around 30 million bags. But now the production is at 74 million bags. That means we've got surpluses. And we can go on and on with the different types of agricultural products, up to even milk. The milk sector has also witnessed tremendous improvements that are benefiting farmers. The coffee, tea, I'm a tea farmer myself and a milk farmer, and I see reasonable progress that is adequate, and a lot can still be done. So the transformation of the country is on course. To me, that satisfies me, because that means all Kenyans can access adequate food, and farmers who are hardworking can earn from their hard work. And government should continue subsidizing all the inputs, including chemicals, and work on the market chain system so that then the prices can be attractive, particularly when it's about exporting. You export, get higher pay, but local consumption, our citizens can access food commodities at affordable prices. So to me, these are great achievements. On the UHC, universal health coverage, though there are a lot of debates on whether it's working or it's not working, but the philosophy is it must work. The testimonies are coming out now that with proper registration and I saw a case of a hip operation and replacement, hip replacement, conducted in Wajir Hospital, and at the cost of SHA. So many medical cases that would have been so difficult to afford by the households are now being executed by the UHC. Okay. So it's a matter of time before it gains proper traction, and the teething challenges are swept off the way. Then Kenyans will begin appreciating the value of UHC. Okay. And very finally, there are two things that any government in the world, if they work on, then the country is good and the citizens will be living a good life. That is one, healthcare system, quality, free and affordable healthcare system. If a government can achieve that, then you have extricated the household from unnecessary costs. And then number two, quality, access to quality and affordable education to all households. If those two are done, then you have almost offloaded the burden of cost to households, and then now complement with availability of food. Then citizens will live more fulfilling and quality life. And I think Kenyans, we are headed there. When time comes for us to fully account blow by blow, we will be accounting what we are witnessing and what has changed and what can be quantified and what can be counted and what can be measured. So the country is on course.
Yes. Dr. Mukundi, for you, what stands out for you given the current events?
Yeah, the first thing that I am seeing is that the government is retracting a lot of decisions that it has actually made. So I'm seeing like we have a government that is not very, very keen before it makes some decisions. It is awaiting for some people to get some feedback from the public so that they can know whether it has made the right decision or not. So I have seen it happen. You know the case of Adani. You also know the case of Finance Bill. It is like it is the public. They are not very firm about their decisions. Then again, as Mheshimiwa is saying, though we have made a few progress in the area of agriculture and production, remember there is what was in the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, that we should get minimum returns to the farmers. So it is like we are still not there yet, because the farmer is still asking, do we, the tea farmer, like where I come from, and coffee farmers, it is like they are asking, do we still have that money that we are being told? The cane farmers, the maize farmers, it is true there is a lot of production, but is it translating to income in the pocket of the farmer? That is where I am seeing some bit of issues. Then I am also seeing that we have a government that is truly rushing a lot of political decisions, but they are not as well translating to economic decisions. So they are rushing so many decisions, political decisions. Like we saw during the impeachment, they rushed a lot of decisions therein. And but we do not have rushed decisions as far as implementation of issues to do with the economy, implementations of things like SHA, SHIF. Like when we talk about that SHA and SHIF, it is a very good model. But we are asking again, will a patient wait until you transit from NHIF to SHA? they will die. And therefore, sometimes some decisions require to be well thought of before they are implemented. So there is a lot of rushing.
Yes.
So that is what I am seeing.
Also joining us is Wakili Peter Wasaga, who is an advocate of the High Court. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
Yes. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
For purposes of fairness, I'll throw the same question to you. What stands out for you, given the current events within the country?
Thank you so much, Migwi, for having us this morning. Thank you, Mheshimiwa Mwalimu Sosion, and also Daktari. It's always good to have you in this panel. Currently, we have a country where our main priority, the main priority of the political class is to fight for survival. There is already fear in the president that is losing the Mount Kenya vote-rich region that voted for him. And now he's out to make new allies and make new friends, to make declarations. Some of those declarations are not well thought. Some of them have no clear policies and legal framework. And they keep embarrassing the president. Because you see, when you roll out something without clear policy, without clear consultation, without clear pathway, you'll be termed a liar. You could be having very good intentions, but when they fail to materialize, everyone will look at you as a liar. That is what we have seen in the past. The churches have come out guns blazing, trailing to the president and telling him on the face that, you know, Mr. President, you are lying. There have been back and forth in terms of returning of goodies which were initially accepted. So the church, in some way, I am a Christian, but again, they are realizing it too late that when the church dines with the government, then they lack the locus standi to speak to the government. So I don't know whether it is very genuine. I don't know it's because of the new developments, but that is something that we can only search the soul of man, which even the Bible says that who knows the soul of a man? It's only God. No, even the devil does not know. So that is something. The president is fighting for survival. He's been to Nyanza, and he mentioned yesterday in Kondele that my government is hanging on the cloth or on the support of the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga. And he termed it as returning of hand, ama kurudisha mkono, from the support he gave him in the year 2007. So, and this goes back to the culture of Kenyans. That Kenyans, normally, they look at things with their emotions and not logic. And you see sometimes the Kenyan voters can surprise you. They can bring another clueless, someone who has no leadership capacity, in the name of punishing a sitting regime. That is what they did last year without clearly thinking through. They came up with members of parliament, some of them who did not have capacity, like Migwi. Let me ask you a very simple question. As a parliament, you support Adani. And you go out in all public rallies insisting that it is good. Then when the president comes in and declares, makes a declaration that Adani is not the best thing, then you all stand to give him a standing ovation. You clap. And you wonder whether you have a brain of your own or you are switched like those doorbells. The other thing you saw with the finance bill, they passed it amidst protests. People are dying. And then when it came to, when the president actually have clearly, I have thought through it, and now I am making a decision to recall the finance bill, the same MPs were celebrating. So it is something that is very unfortunate that our members of parliament have lost their legitimacy, they have lost their mandate. They are not serving the interest of the people. The parliament and the executive is one and the same thing. There is a lot of economic rights being violated. There's a lot of human rights being violated. There is a lot of lack of transparency. Look at Moi, for example, a big public university that has produced many people, including myself, now is a shell of its former. You saw the former students coming out to really castigate and call upon the government to intervene. And where did the rain start beating us? Or where did we lose it? It's because of tribalism. It's because of our person. It's because of ethnicity. It's because of a politics of convenience. Gachagua is out. So without even questioning it, we are opposing the government. So that mentality, if we go on with that, we cannot really have a clear thinking pathway that can develop this country, especially at this challenging moment.
Yes. There's something, I'll come to that, but there's something he mentioned about the church, and even yesterday the Kenya Coalition of Church Alliances and Ministry told the president, no more promises, implement the ones you said, give the people some time back. What do you think about that as you respond to him?
Yes, I think it's good you allow me to set the record straight, because it's a legitimate concern within the space of freedom of speech and respect of opinion of others. And I am sure we'll get a clear equilibrium of understanding. Number one, Dr. here talks of government being hasty and retracting some things. You must retract when the public opinion outweighs the intention of implementing a certain program. Because we are a democracy, that's not a weakness. And so what government has done, what the president did to delete all clauses of the finance bill, it was no longer serving the interests of the country for the president to assent to the bill, which actually had been fully approved by parliament, and the mood of the country was seriously against it. And the reasonable president will respond to the provisions of Article 10 of the Constitution. And he did it. That is leadership. Number two, the Adani deal, if it is smelling and it has been indicted elsewhere, and of course the procurement processes had gone on within government and is a known conglomerate, that was not new to this space and to the economic space. And the president himself, by decree and pronouncement, abolished the engagement of Adani by this country. That is leadership. It's the right thing to do. So that then we go through another procurement processes for the PPP investments that are required for the country. There is no doubt we need to expand our airport. The question, everybody questioned that, and the president has deleted, which is a good thing to do. It's a good thing to do. The president will keep retracting certain things that do not work, and it happens in management. There is what we call review of decisions. If in management, if you don't review your decisions and you realign them to new realities, then you cannot progress. Then the issue of the farmers, indeed the farmers have worked very, very hard. And one way of offloading the burden of farmers is when you subsidize input, then it means you relieve them of the burden of cost to a great extent. The next segment, marketing, aggregation of goods and marketing, is not an event. It is a process and it's a journey to walk. But then when production goes up, of course we expect the prices to be a bit suppressed. That may affect the farmers. But then through economy of scale and reduced inputs in terms of agricultural economics, they will still reap the benefits anyway. So those are key things. The issue of the president being in a political crisis, every politician is in a political crisis if we speak facts about politics. But then what the president is pushing across the country right now is national unity and bringing all on board. He did not start it yesterday at Kondele and in Kisumu. He started it at Kasarani. That I will work with all the leaders.
All right.
He did not start yesterday with Raila Odinga. It has been ongoing, and with all of them. Raila Odinga now is in West Africa campaigning for the AU, courtesy of support of the government of Kenya. That we have outgrown our thinking from thinking domestically and thinking about local political conflicts, and we are looking at our continental opportunities and probably global opportunities that will maybe my good lawyer will open a law firm.
Let's take a short break.
That is how we need to think.
Because there's a question I need you to respond to
yes,
about
that
churches.
Is a question.
Let us take a short break. We'll come back to that. Yep. And also joining us is Wakili George Kithi, who is an advocate of the High Court. We'll talk to him right after this short break. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching KBC Channel 1. My name is Mike Megu, and this is The Viewpoint on Good Morning Kenya. There's a question I asked Mheshimiwa Sosion about the church and how yesterday they told the president, first of all, make good the promises you give, no more new promises. Is the church, can we say the church is, quote unquote, reclaiming its voice in all this?
No, the church has never lost its voice. And the church in Kenya has been part and parcel of democratic development. It has been part and parcel. It has been part of the struggle. It is a strong moral voice outside the political sphere, and it has always spoken on frontier of social justice. And the president is a member of one of the church. Is an avowed and devout Christian, for that matter. So he's very conscious about what the church is saying. And within the provisions of the Constitution of freedom of speech and freedom of opinion, we've seen various statements by different churches. We saw the Catholic Church, and you look at the preamble, they analyze the country and said, yes, it's now peaceful, security is good, but these are the issues of concern. Issues of concern. The church has a right to place before the government of the day issues of concern that are afflicting their members. And we've seen different groups of churches place such opinions before the president. And I can tell you on this show, the president is very conscious to the opinion of the church. He's always willing to listen to what the church is saying, and he's willing to consider. In management, listen to the opinion of people. No man is an angel. We are humans, and so none of us is perfect the way we do things. And so feedback from public feedback in a democratic setup is good, and that is what the president values. And so I believe the opinions that have been rendered are being subjected to the process of analysis, consideration, and where it fits, it shall be factored appropriately. And so the president cannot ignore opinion of Kenyans, whether it is from the churches, whether it's from trade unions. We have seen since Kenya Kwanza administration came to power, several strikes of workers, and the president has taken time to understand and to engage the various parties. We saw the doctors, and it ended up with good engagement and resolve by the president. We saw the teachers, their issues were also addressed. We have seen the lecturers, some 9 billion has been factored for their CBA, despite all these challenges facing universities which are collapsing. And I would like to say, even the rot facing public universities did not start with this regime. The university started off very well through Kibaki agenda of universal access and improving transition to universities. But the Uhuru administration, particularly in reducing the transition to universities, caused a very serious economic challenge to the universities, which has not been cured up to now. It's now what is being addressed. So generally, the president has listened to all Kenyans and will listen to all Kenyans collectively through their organized groups or individually as individuals, including institutions of parliament.
All right. Let's now look at what is making headlines in our local dailies, and I'll start with the Star. This is what is making headlines. Courts cash starved as backlogs build up. Judiciary faces a budget shortfall of between 20 to 43 billion. That story, you will read it on in detail in page 4 and 5. And also here, Rosingwell City rolls out a red carpet for Ruto. That is in regards to President Ruto's visit in Kisumu yesterday. I want to engage you, Wakili Kithi, on this issue. Courts cash starved as backlogs build up. What's your take on that? And what is happening?
That's a true statement. Mm-hmm. We have a problem with the judiciary, or at judiciary, because it seems to be the first call when government is reducing expenditure and cutting expenditure in institutions. Mm-hmm. Why it is a victim is because the administration of justice seems passive. Mm-hmm. It doesn't build the roads, it doesn't buy the ambulances, it is not optically present. Mm-hmm. But again, in the silence of its voice, the administration of justice is one of the pillars, the Constitution, special access to it. Yeah. So although it seems the first place to hurt, I do think that eventually it will be realized that it is an important pillar in society. Yeah. But fast forward, cutting expenditure comes with the good and the bad. The judiciary must also adapt to these changes. They don't make decisions in parliament, and budgeting is a political process. It's a negotiated process, sometimes even rewarding ethnicity and loyalty within the budgetary process, which it can delve into. So it have representation and a voice within parliament, because it doesn't vote for a member of parliament to represent it. It's an institution that gets insulated through goodwill and badwill. Yes. Some or somewhat depending on the environment. So that continues to be cyclic. Every budgetary system and for every regime, obviously, the judiciary cannot be allowed to be in bed with whatever government or executive. It can't, because that's very dangerous for the country. Yeah. So you realize that for the reason that is a constant irritant to any government that comes, it will be the first call upon which to hurt when you are reducing budgetary allocations on account of budgetary constraints as we have, or as we're facing. But I said it comes with the good, because see, when we had COVID, one of the things were, of course, budgetary constraints, cutting budgets like we are. So the presumption is, in case of any problem, we must find a way to survive. So we adapted means where justice can be administered. And one of the most revolutionary ways was to attend court through the conventions and congregations using the internet and technology. That has developed, it had its teething problems, but that has developed over time, such that it becomes the norm. You can attend your cases, and we can attend our cases at the confines and comfort of our offices. In fact, for the urban courts, litigants can also attend courts via internet and so on and so forth. We have a problem still with the rural areas because of electricity and connections. But again, that's a system that's being developed. I do know, for instance, that the courts are adopting a unified system much more improved than the one that we're using now, so that they have their own inbuilt system where you can file and access court and know how your case has developed, so that we have paperless processes. Now, you realize that you therefore don't have to transport your judges to a circuit of sorts, like move Court of Appeal. If it's not in Kericho, you move judges of the Court of Appeal to Kericho, and the circuit gets reduced, and the contact with the judges also gets reduced. If you can't contact the judge and you don't have to access the judge physically, many things get reduced, including the risk of contamination and alteration of the process, and therefore the reduction of incidences of contact and the bribery and all those things that are being suggested. So yes, it comes with the good, but it comes with the bad, but also comes with the good. The other bit is why then can't we come with processes that reduce completely, almost completely, the cost of access to justice? And the other bit also is the cash that is collected in judiciary must go back to develop judiciary, as opposed to go to the exchequer and then applied at the wherewithal of the executive, because that's a lot of money, one of the revenue streams of government. Now, if you look at the argument as to, therefore, what happens, I think it has affected the entire society. There are institutions that appeal as a society because they go to the very basis of a constitutional dispensation, a democracy, and discharge of justice and processes there too, and eventually, therefore, stability of society and peace. Therefore, the balance is delicate. We understand what the government is doing, but also we think that the culprits are not and are supposed to be the process of administration of justice, especially judiciary. They are somewhere else. And of course, the people who make those decisions to cut the cost are the ones that want to sustain, for instance, the CDF and all that. I mean, I'm talking about Parliament. Yes. And therefore, the decision maker will be conflicted in making a decision in cutting budgets, because you see, there's that which gives that person comfort, and wouldn't care or cares less how the judiciary behaves and fails, because on a day-to-day basis, they feel like that's an away institution, far away from their own establishment and comfort. So you realize that even in decision-making on budget cuts in government, there's obviously conflict of interest, because they make decisions based on where the thinking of the comfort will be, and where it will hurt them, they won't touch, and where it is farmost and far-flung in terms of proximity to their comfort, then of course they make such decision, and that's why you see such a headline. Yes. But eventually, I think that we should adapt to such situations. We did it during Moi's time, and I think we survived about 9 years, we completely without the comfort of the learning system, international learning system, and the Bretton Woods institution. We had their own problems with them. But for now, I do think the advent of technology is a robust and a viable way upon which we can adapt to such situations. Okay,
Doctor, I want to get your sentiments on this, and also one of the things that has been attributed to this is the late releases from the exchequer. What's your take on that?
Yeah, first of all, let me say that I think the government may be having some financial strains. The reason is because number one, you realize that there was the finance bill that would assist to collect revenue. Yeah. I think that one really affected the government way of funding itself. And therefore, we could be having some problems, and therefore they are trying to cut on some cost. The most sacrificial lamb in this case would be the judiciary as the arm of the government, because it doesn't participate, as Wakili is saying. It doesn't participate in the way in which the sharing of money is there. You realize the parliament is the one that deals with the allocation. Executive also has a play in the way the money is being shared, but the judiciary is just waits and therefore it can be sacrificed to a great extent. And that is where we have that problem. But we have also seen, we have heard from a section of Kenyans that there has been a lot of compromise also in the judiciary to the executive. And could be whatever they are told, they are following, if that would be the truth. So it has been like that according to me.
To you.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to also get, I want to get your sentiments on this, and also the questions, or the question of, is it only the budget, or lags it in terms of expediting cases is another problem that the judiciary is facing?
Apart from being a member of Kenya Kwanza setup, not government, but setup.
Yes.
I think I'm a great user of the courts, arising from my other life. And I can give an account of our judiciary, because I've traveled world over to many jurisdictions, and even to the continent of Africa. Give it to our judiciary. They've done a fantastic job. We have one of the most independent judiciary in the world. Some of the African governments or jurisdictional democracies will wonder why Kenyan elections are processed again through the Supreme Court, and even they are either nullified or upheld. It baffles many, the type of democracy that we have. So one, let's agree, through Kenya Constitution 2010, we have made our judiciary independent and strong to deliver. And every political setup in this country understands that. Now, fast forward, give it to President William Ruto. And he said, I'll respect the judiciary, its independence and its operations. And on day one, he signed the appointment of the 6 judges that Uhuru had declined to do so, because the Judicial Service Commission had done due diligence in appointing those particular judges. And so the duty of a president to approve was needed. And he did what his predecessor interpreted otherwise. And that was one signal of leaving the judiciary to do it. So the president will allow the Judicial Service Commission to perform its duty, the president of the Supreme Court to do its work, and the judges to do their work. And the president said, my government will respect all court rulings. And if you do a fact check of what the president has done, is that any court ruling against any government program, he has complied, or has taken those pieces of legislation for further review by Parliament before implementation. And that is, in governance, we create a judiciary for common order. And that is why their opinion counts. You must listen to them and allow them to operate. And the annual engagement of the summits, that is the independent arms, the National Assembly, judiciary with the president, is for purposes of creating harmony, so that it doesn't look like you're micromanaging the judiciary or micromanaging Parliament. And what has come out for expedition of the cases was that judiciary needed more money to hire more judges. That was allocated. And in the commitment of the budget, because the budget is competitive, it compete with other areas of investments in the economy. The president has committed to put more money in the judiciary. And the recent reduction did not only affect judiciary, it affected all institutions with the removal of the finance bill. For us as a country to be independent, we must raise domestic taxes to finance our budget. Kibaki administration was already doing at 95%. Yeah. But when you have a budget that you must go out there to borrow money to finance, it is not good. And I think as a country, we must accept that we are getting into an era where we must raise taxes domestically.
Okay.
Part of those taxes will go to the judiciary.
Yeah.
The deletion of the finance bill by the president and subsequent withdrawal affected all institutions. And you know, even the teaching service, it affected the CBA of teachers. Teachers came out and went on strike, and therefore their vote for the CBA had to be saved through reinstatement. So it affected all institutions, including the judiciary. But I agree very strongly, in my own opinion, that we should continue gradually empowering the judiciary.
Yes.
That's a fact for sure.
Okay.
So that it can deliver, so that it can continue doing its good work that it is doing currently. With the infrastructure that is talking about, that then, even as a lawyer, you don't need to physically appear in court. Through your laptop and desktop in your office, you can participate in proceedings of the court. I think that is a great step by the judiciary. And of course, the judiciary doesn't require much capital development in terms of infrastructure. You only need software and hardware investment of that infrastructure, and you work. Unlike roads, you need to build roads, you need to build, connect electricity, and do real capital investment in other sectors of the economy.
Okay.
But I agree strongly, the judiciary has to be funded. The president is conscious about it, that the judiciary is important to make it independent, even in matters of dealing with corruption, so that corruption cases can be expedited. Then we need the judiciary to be empowered, and you have more judges, and those matters are prosecuted effectively within the confines of the law and the constitution, but not weaponizing.
Yes.
And so I think we are on the right track as a country. If we compare ourselves with other jurisdiction, let's agree we are on the right track.
I want
then
to get,
what can we do to make it better? I think the big question here is,
yes,
what can we do to make our judiciary more efficient, more effective, and more appreciated by the people?
I want to get the sentiments of Wakili Peter Wasaga on this, and from your standpoint, how do we remedy this and avoid cases where we have a backlog of cases owing to lack of funds?
Thank you so much. Even as we analyze the funding of the judiciary, main thing here is to look at how effective the judiciary has been over time, especially in the past 1 year, which from my own assessment is commendable. Looking at maybe from the human resource perspective, and looking at it from now the infrastructural perspective. As we speak, there is there are high courts in almost all the counties except one. That is commendable, because you see, one thing, we also need transparency with regards to the funds that you have received. Regarding the backlog of cases, we saw the introduction of the small claims court to deal with the small debts of, let's say, below 1 million. And that has unlocked billions of money that were held by individuals against individuals, even companies against companies, and this is something that has immensely reduced the backlog in the courts. Because initially all these matters were taken to the magistrate courts, and the magistrate courts were not fully resourced human resource wise, and a case will take a very long time. For instance, you would file a matter today and wait for almost a month to get directions regarding the same matter. You'd want to send a clerk to go and pick dates. You'll want them to peruse files. You'll want them to travel long distance. Like this morning, I have cases outside Nairobi. They are being done in the office, just at the comfort of the office, virtually. So we are able to file online, which is very effective. Both in the subordinate courts, the high courts, and even the Supreme Court, which is very commendable. Looking also at the aspect of the human resource, let's say the budget in some way has contributed to lack of manpower in terms of judges, magistrates, to preside over cases. Because even if you take these things, if you take the matters, virtual court hearings and put it on the table, but then without the judges to preside over these cases, then that still is a mirage. We need the human resource to deal with these matters. And as we speak, the only court that is fully operational in terms of the human resource and which is dictated by the Constitution is the Supreme Court. Other courts, for example, the Supreme Court, are short of almost 70 judges. Remember, there was an advertisement and the interviews were already slated when the finance bill was actually rejected. And the Judicial Service Commission actually halted the whole process. We have never gotten any indication as to the appointment of the new Court of Appeal judges. Then that means that the many cases that are in court are not adequately attended to, not because of the judges, but because of the capacity that they have. So as much as the finances are concerned, there are things that we also need to look at, because the judiciary is one place that when it's compromised, or when it's demoralized, or when it's not fully equipped, the result is very evident. That is why there are so many corruption cases lying in court for a very long time. We have very many witnesses. For example, in a case that we'll have like 70 witnesses. For 70 witnesses, that's a matter that you cannot hear in one month. You cannot hear it in two months. It can even span to 4 years, 3 years. And when these individuals who are accused of committing these heinous offenses, they go and get cash bail, they also lean towards the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. They continue holding offices if they are not held accountable. And with the protracted court cases, you find those who with very compromised characters and criminal accusations keeping or holding offices to the detriment of the public. And actually that is what is happening right now. We've seen, for example, Mheshimiwa Waluke, for example. He was accused of corruption, and even the court convicted him for that.
Allow me to cut you short. On that point, hold that point. We go for a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Don't go too far. Welcome back to The Viewpoint. This is Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migo, and thank you for staying with us. We continue with the Viewpoint. Wakili Peter Wasaga was speaking about remedying the problems of funds that have been reported on one of our local dailies. If you may continue with that.
So, thank you so much. When we look at the finance crunch at the judiciary, we have to look at it wholesomely. We have to look at it in terms of facilities, the courts. We have to look at it in terms of human resource, in terms of the judges, in terms of the clerks who are being employed. And we also have to look at it in terms of now how transparent has the judiciary been. In fact, from the report yesterday, it's very clear that there are very many milestones that the judiciary has made. I was telling you about the danger we face when the judiciary is not well equipped in terms of judges. We have one judge dealing with so many cases, and when you're dealing with so many cases and with the complexities of witnesses in criminal cases, that's why in corruption cases, for example, that is why we have so many cases collapsing, because you can easily, with the delays, you can easily compromise a witness. And when you compromise a witness, they can easily withdraw a very crucial testimony, and that will jeopardize the case.
Yes.
So if we equip the judiciary and we are able to see how effective they give their judgments and rulings, then we can easily and confidently say that our judicial system is working. But let us look at it from, currently, how has it affected its mandate? In terms of the judicial decision, in terms of independence, Kenyans have confidence in the judiciary. That is why you saw the former deputy president, when he was going through the impeachment process, he had the confidence in court, and he still has the confidence in court. That is why he went to court.
Yeah.
If the courts were dictated and there was no separation and independence of the judiciary, where, for example, the head of state can dictate whatever comes in and whatever goes out, then you'll bear witness with me that we could go back to the same thing that happened in the year 2007, because there was no confidence in the judiciary. Right now, we've seen very many decisions from the judiciary that are anti-government. They challenge the public participation process. They challenge the constitutionality of the process, and that is done very boldly, that is done very confidently. We have also seen a well-reasoned judgments that can easily be traced to case laws, the existing laws. And of course, you see one thing about judgments and rulings or decisions by the court, if I may sum it will never augur with everyone, because you see it's a battle. There is a battle between the person claiming or the person petitioning and the person responding. And of course, every argument is geared towards winning a case. So when a case is not decided in your favor, the best honorable thing that you can do is to appeal. Of course, there are certain areas and there are certain decisions that clearly from the decision of the judge, you can see that there is some inconsistency in how he has made that judgment. Perhaps there is a principle he relied on in a previous matter, and then when it comes to a new matter, he totally deviates from the same. Or there are evidences of corruption. There is a system through which that can be dealt with. So there should you can go to the Judicial Service Commission to complain against a judge, and if there are evidence, like what Rigathi Gachagua did, so you alleges must prove. If there are evidence, then that can warrant the removal of the judge. So I think we should have a balance. We understand that the country is facing a lot of financial challenges, but again, we should have irreducible minimums. For example, you should not cut 50%. Like right now, the judiciary is operating with almost 22% of their initial requests. So if it could be enhanced to around 50%, that could make sense, and that would also make their work very effective. I think going to your second question about remind me again?
How we can remedy this?
The best way to remedy this is to leave the judiciary to perform their mandate independently. That is that's the main thing here. Because if you interfere with the judiciary, if you use that finance budgeting as a tool to blackmail them, if there is also clear opinion that there is a way the judiciary is dining with the executive, that is something that must be worked on. Judiciary should be left to perform their functions. The judiciary should be funded, and the judiciary should also account for the funds they have, and the judiciary should also, within the Judicial Service Commission and within the judges themselves, they should also work on getting the public confidence by making consistent decisions based on principles, based on the law. And then if that is questioned, then we can also get a very clear pathway to develop our jurisprudence and also to develop the effectiveness of the judiciary going forward.
Let me take you through the front page of the Standard quickly, because there's a conversation I want us to get into. Ruto, why Gachagua had to go, giving the example of his former deputy president, Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, who was recently impeached. The president yesterday said he will send home any members of his Kenya Kwanza government who propagate hate, division and tribalism. The head of state said all officials and learners must preach unity and work for every Kenyan. Read that story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Raila pitches camp in West Africa as he campaigns for AUC top job. Mr. Odinga continues to crisscross West Africa, where he yesterday held a meeting with the Senegalese leader Bassirou Diomaye Faye. That story is told on page 8 of the Daily Nation. Quickly on the front page of the Standard, will Raila bases cool heat from Mount Kenya? Facing rebellion in Mount Kenya after Rigathi Gachagua's impeachment, President Ruto gave his strongest hint yet that he is ready for new allies, even as his central fight back plan met with resistance. Yesterday, Ruto, preaching unity, stormed Nyanza and showered Raila with praise for helping steady the ship. That story is told on page 4 and 5 of the Standard newspaper. Litmus test as ODM goes to the polls. After several false starts, ODM faces a litmus test again as it conducts its grassroots elections in the face of internal wars and tension. That story is told on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. All right. I want us to get into a conversation regarding the persistent financial challenges that counties are facing. And according to the Constitution, the Treasury is mandated to release funds to the counties on the equitable revenue share. However, the counties have decried late releases of these funds that have affected them in their operations. But my first question, and I will start with you, Wakili. Why do you think this has persisted for long, Wakili George?
That's a question we will be dealing with for some time. Because there's the ideal of the law and there's the practical application of the law. Ordinarily, the ideal will be they will flow together and basically have a system put in law that is fluid and properly resourced. But we presume that other institutions do their work. Kenya Revenue Authority does its work. Kenyans pay their taxes. The socio-political issues, including global issues, therefore complement the system that we've put into place.
Yeah.
But we do know that there are factors that are very disruptive of a financial system put into place for any country. The US has its issues that is dealing with. Inflation has been a big issue. The UK has its issues. So the global factors keep on, because we trade with the entire world. We have to get goods like petroleum products from somewhere else because we don't produce them. But we have checked what we produce elsewhere, like coffee and tea, avocado and whatever we are producing. And these days, of course, we produce human resource and take it out there. But all that has to be transported at a cost. And there's a tax implication and so on and so forth. You realize that a lot of the hardware that we use for purposes of development here is imported. And therefore, if you look at the cost of hardware, which is a finished product, vis-a-vis the agricultural produce which you produce as a raw material, there's quite a problem there in terms of much of what we spend cannot be what we get as an income as a country. But that has its own issues in terms of affecting the dollar element vis-a-vis our shilling and so on and so forth. Sufficiency, again, depends on many things. We are more inclined to agricultural produce using traditional method of produce, using rain from God or from the clouds, which we have no control over. We have control over water that we have harnessed and kept for purpose of production. So many things are not right. So you realize that to have a system that is working and complementary to each other is very difficult. The counties survives as a devolved government, but I would say they have been given some element of independence in how they operate, by law and the Constitution. They are supposed to resource mobilize and therefore resource themselves apart from relying on the allocation of what Kenyans collect and put in a kitty, and they get that, the money. So they're supposed to come with ways in which they survive. Give it to them. I mean, we've come from far. If you looked at the previous divorce system that we had, which were municipalities, there was a very big problem there because they were completely insufficient and there was no service provision. The counties have tried to pick it up and provide services to the people, probably much better than what the municipalities and city councils and city municipalities and town councils did.
Yes.
So if you look at the historical progression, yes, we are somewhere many steps ahead. But you look at the ideal of the constitution and where we wanted everything to be,
Yeah.
especially many years after the evolution of the constitution that probably packaged the administrative system of the two-tier government, we are not yet there. The counties must be made accountable. That is something we have failed as a country. We have not held our counties, our devolved units, accountable. The reason is holding people accountable ought to be a scientific process, ought to be an open process, ought to be a legal process. But in this country, holding people, especially the counties, accountable is a political process.
Yeah.
You see, it's a political process because the oversight institutions, the most optically available oversight institutions such as the Senate, is a political tool. It's supposed to be a legal tool, yes, but it's comprised of a political, it's politically human resource. And therefore, it makes decisions depending on the political environment of the time. So you impeach Kawira Mwangaza because at the time, there was political heat between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. When they come together, now you impeach them. And therefore, how you place and do oversight on the counties depends on the political environment of the day. Of course, lest and assembled and packaged as if there's some semblance of input of law, but it's political emotions that drive that. If you touch a governor today, you touch either a community, an ethnic community, or you touch a political segment of the political composition.
Yeah.
So a governor from Nyanza is most likely sponsored by ODM and comes from a certain ethnic group where Raila Odinga supports government, and Raila Odinga looks at that as his bastion. And therefore you now get into those intricacies and problems. If you touch Central Kenya governor today, it's looked at as if it's persecution of Central Kenya, because recently then we had a Central Kenya highest person in government impeached, and so on and so forth. So the politics of the day obviously incline towards affecting oversight, and therefore accountability is compromised. Suffice it to say, therefore, that the biggest problem we have is not money flowing from government to counties. By the way, people in this country can survive even if money is not sent. Because there's a way the private sector fuels also productivity, movement of people, and it pays the people and salary. So yes, Kenyans have the resilience to survive, notwithstanding the political environment.
Yes.
And how national government relates with the county governments. But the county governments are supposed to help the composition of the entire government, looking at the first tier and the second tier government, national government and the devolved units, for purposes of harnessing growth and development. That is not happening because of the disconnect between release of the money and the oversight environment upon which you must have fear of the money that is sent to you as a governor and the executive in the administration of the funds from Kenyans. Those funds are not from your county. They're coming from all Kenyans. So a person from Kericho and a person from Mombasa contributes the money given to Nairobi. A person from Nairobi and a person from Nyanza contribute the money given to Mombasa. So it's the entire country contributing money to Akiti, given to a certain county, using an equitable formula, where then the money is supposed to be accounted not by the people of that county alone, but the entire government, because then that's why the institution of accountability are national. When therefore the institution of oversight do not work, it means that is where there'll be a problem, because then the political powers seem to be dominant over the legal processes, and therefore we have a friction there and a problem. So when you come to the courts, what plays out eventually, if it gets to the court, because I can tell you it's difficult. The political process ordinarily is probably hotter and more dominant versus the DCIs, versus the EACC, versus all that, at least in the short term. Yeah. And therefore you realize that you have first to look at political process as you make decisions on the legal processes. The political process are first in time vis-a-vis the legal processes, and that's the disconnect. So to have mercy on the it's okay to send money to the devolved units, but to exercise mercy of perception on the devolved units for purposes of because they've not been given money and cry out like at the highest decibels, I don't think has saved this country. What will save this country is the oversight processes, because governors today have failed to account how they've used the money.
Okay. Dr. do you agree with that? And is it a case of Treasury prioritizing national government over devolved units from where you stand?
Yeah, let me first of all say that I would attribute the problem to both tiers of the government. Number one, you realize that there were so many devolved functions that were taken to the counties. The national government was only left with a few. But you realize the money that is left in the national government is the bigger chunk. The money that goes to the county government for the function as a percentage is a smaller chunk. And therefore I would say that if we have devolved many units in the counties, why can't the national government release the enough funds so that we can be able to operate those functions? And number two, you realize there is a lot of duplication of those functions. Like if you have the Department of Agriculture in the counties, we still have the Ministry of Agriculture in the national government. If we are devolving, why can't we devolve all of it? We still have health in the national government. We have health in the county government, and we are saying it's a fully devolved unit. So you see there is a lot of duplication of functions in both tiers of the government. But on the other side, you also see that counties, they have played a bigger role, also because of a lot of mismanagement and corruption. You get a governor, when he gets into the office, has to do with every other person who has been there, so that he can come with his cronies and people that pledge loyalty to him, which is a very good politically, but it is a very bad thing economically. So I totally believe that issues regarding corruption and issues regarding the governors, the way they are managing finances, is not good. The seat of a governor should be a seat of a manager, a person who understands. But I have seen even those governors, when they appear before the Senate, as Wakili is saying, they cannot really even articulate the small things that they should know about the county. You have seen a governor in this nation say, please ask my CEC. And she is told, it is your question, not the CEC's questions. So it simply means that those people, they do not have the nitty-gritties regarding the operations of the county. And that is where we are having a serious issue. So I totally believe that there are so many things that require to be put in place as far as that. Then the sharing of revenue. Why can't we have a standardized system whereby we share the revenue in the best way? Instead of us, year after year, we have the chairman of budget, the chairman of what, going and sitting down and thinking that we need to allocate this amount of revenue to the counties. It is a serious issue. So we politicize the situation. And once we politicize that situation, then it loses its meaning.
Yes.
But also counties do not generate own revenue. So you realize that counties are waiting upon the national government. Now, if I come from a county like Migori, why can't KRA there, whatever it collects, belong to Migori? So those are some of the things that we need to sit down and boldly come up with them so that we can be in a position to move as a nation.
You believe the standardization of, sometime back the governors and senators had suggested the creation of a devolution fund to cushion counties from all this problem. Would that solve the problem?
That one will greatly solve that problem. Because, if the president comes and he is not in terms with the governor, a certain governor because he has been elected in another party rather than his party, he can use that as a tool to punish the same governor. But you see, if we hand a standardized way and we have a fund and it is legally executed, I think it can really solve that particular problem.
Mheshimiwa Sossion, you have something you want to say?
I was thinking through deeply because when we talk about programs, it's all about money availability. It is funding. That reminds me in 2015, when we were in Ichon, Korea in May, adopting the Sustainable Development Agenda 4 on education towards equitable quality education. We were looking at many targets that requires investment in infrastructure in schools, it requires investment, training, recruitment, supporting and adequately paying more teachers. It required investment and availing scholarships so that students can study for free. It requires investment. That brings me to this setup of county. I think it is cheap to argue that funds have delayed to the counties and we leave it at that and become a general story of the country. Let us go to the depths of it. It has delayed for how long? Is that money subsequently remitted as outlined in the budget? Yes, if we talk about Kenya now, the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, John Badi, the other day outlined that he has released all the equitable revenue allocation to the counties up to and including the month of October, and is working on the month of November. The governors who argued about addition only of 20 billion, and the mediation committee agreed on 2 billion, which of course shall be wired. I think we should get down to asking ourselves serious questions. 14 years down with the devolution, what can we witness?
What can we witness?
As development.
Let me
and if I compare the two,
we go to a break, then we'll come back to that.
Yes,
exactly. Let's take a short break. This is Good Morning Kenya. Stay with us. Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. This is The Viewpoint, and we are talking about the persistent financial challenges within the counties. Before we went on a break, Honorable Sossion, you are talking about this issue.
We must ask ourselves hard questions so that then we can think legally and constitutionally how to remedy. That's a fact for sure. The first devolved fund in this country before the advent of the Constitution was CDF. That was meant to stop Harambes in Kenya. And Kibaki administration through, of course it was an act of parliament by Karue, MP for Kipipiri. And 21 years down the line, this fund has worked magic to the extent that we no longer have a ramp base for schools. The money allocated to schools and to education through CDF is working effectively, both in terms of bursary and infrastructure. And about 90% of the money that goes to CDF actually goes to school, and it does a fantastic job. That's a fact, though my learned friends here will tell me outrightly it is illegal, it has been ruled by the court. But as a democratic country, we can still defend what is right and petition. But compare now with 14 years of devolution, that is absorbing billions of shillings annually. We devolved corruption, and in fact worse corruption than the corruption that existed at the center. And that is a big problem. It's a challenge here. So that it is wrong to mislead the country to say the funds to the counties have delayed when it has actually been released probably up to the month of October. We've not taken time to audit the accountability of these funds as per the devolved function. What has it done? Most of the money has been allocated on recurrent and not development. So really the priority on development is missing. So the architecture of expending devolved funds does not really assist in implementation of the functions of the county. We can say yes, it's little, but what good can you do with the little so that you are given more than you do more? I think this is where we need to question ourselves, and I dare say in other jurisdictions where the devolved functions, and if I talk about I've traveled all over the world, we have all traveled, we know jurisdictions where devolution have worked for many years. Talk, for example, in the US, education, for example, is devolved to the states and to the counties. And when you get down to the counties, the school infrastructure is a mandate of devolved counties. And schools infrastructure are decent. They're constructed to minimum quality standards. And in fact, when you walk into a school, a primary school, you would think it is a university here because of the type of infrastructure, the fields, and everything, and basic amenities. The transport system for school children in the US is the responsibility of the counties. The children only walk to the bus station and board a school bus. That is how devolution has developed in many jurisdictions. So our drafters of the Constitution envisaged faster, equitable development at the counties, and that's why you devolve resources to the counties so that the people at the counties can govern themselves, and they have an assembly, they have a governor. It's almost autonomous. But what we are getting is that we are not witnessing this. And probably by now, even the healthcare system, when you are rolling out UHC, it is a big thing for the country. And it should be the biggest attraction for the county government. How do we see the participation even of the governors in supervising and superintending to see that there are quality healthcare facilities with adequate supply of medicine? It's within the budget. The supplies to the county medical facilities is done by the counties. It's within their budget, and is a conditional budget for that matter. And the different levels of hospitals and the management of personnel. What is it that we can write home about? That we can see governors really working hard that within the healthcare sector, this is what we have done, we need this, and really make a very strong justification. I think what we are seeing is corruption. And the big thing of it is that we are seeing these impeachments. And so if I compare 21 years down the line of CDF, 14 years down the line of devolution, we are not feeling anything much from devolution, despite constitutional mandates and money allocated. We are getting much, even from CDF, though it's a very thin type of funding. So I think it is time we engage in some thorough introspection. Yes. And I know legal minds will have strong reservation. There is a judgment in court. But then as a country, can we debate and we be practical? Can we make devolution work, even as we put in more money, can we engage in actual public audit? Actual public audit of what they do. If development at the county is factored through what we call public participation, what are the types of public participation that we are getting at the counties?
So, let me respond to that before my good friend comes. CDF is illegal, has always been illegal. It's just that it had to be pronounced to be legal at some point, and that happened. We cannot give you money. You implement the executive part of the development, and then you come and oversight yourself because those are public funds. That's number one. So it is illegal, it will remain illegal, ever. It will always remain illegal to give a person oversighting a public funds to himself implement function of those public funds.
But point of correction.
Wait.
Legally, the way it is now after the amendment.
That is the law.
No. After amendment.
Even the amendment will be legal.
It is not managed by the member of parliament. It is oversighted.
Even that
is a fund account manager. It is
provided
money from the executive.
Let me tell you this.
The only thing that the members of parliament is to oversight.
We will be in court and we'll declare it illegal still. I'll tell you why. We've seen all that fault lines.
We'll still be
We'll see the fault lines and it will still be illegal.
Fellow lawyers to defend
we will make it illegal. You bring it on. But the point is this.
Yeah.
It is not true that there's no corruption in CDF. In fact, there's a lot of corruption. Those bursaries, one, in fact, that's where the biggest fault line is. You know, there are people the women who go apply for bursaries for their children, and they are sexually molested because of asking for money to help their children.
Crimes. Those are outright crimes.
There are girls in universities, in colleges, in schools, who are sexually molested on account of asking for help.
And those are pure crimes.
And that's more criminal than even corruption.
Those are crimes.
It's wrong. Of course, it happens from counties, but the road in counties is also available as a road in CDF. It's just that the money allocated in CDF are small monies, if I have to put it that way, so that the exposure also is not to the extensity available for counties. Then remember, and that is where the problem is, we are saying that it is because Parliament exercises more oversight authority over counties because they're not the implementers. And therefore, more comes out on mismanagement of county funds because Parliament exercises its powers of oversight over the devolved units, over counties. Whereas Parliament will not exercise oversight authority over its own function in CDF because it is their money, and that's why the conflict is. Conflict of interest. And therefore, when Mr. Sosion says that what we see in counties is probably more pronounced than that which is in the CDF, is exactly the problem I'm trying to highlight to him. The problem is that members of Parliament do not oversight on CDF because it is their own money. And therefore, if they buy desks and out of that they have their cut, they eat the money, they will not oversight themselves. So Mr. Sosion will say it, and many Kenyans will say it, on account of information coming out of the oversight function of Parliament. It is Parliament that oversights and therefore pronounces the fault lines that come out of how the money was used. But it is more robust, more aggressive with the devolved units and counties on account of the fact that it is not their thing. It is not CDF. It is devolved units, development agenda and programs. And that's why we are saying you cannot oversight CDF, and CDF is illegal on account of conflicts such as the one that Mr. Sosion is bringing out in this debate.
Okay, which all boils down to accountability that you talked about. And Wakili, I also want to get your sentiments on this, because counties have other sources of income. We are talking about own source revenues, loans, grants, etc. Why have counties remained overly reliant on the equitable revenue share?
That's a very good question. And before I delve into that, we have to appreciate that the devolution, the inclusion of devolution in our constitution was the best thing that ever happened to this country. And without prejudice to anything, the timely disbursement of funds should not be a thing of debate. It is a matter of the law, and it is a matter that is well provided in the constitution. Initially, there was siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya, so that if you had a member of parliament, for instance, who was not in bed with or who was not supporting the political class or the government of the day, then you will be locked out of development. And you've seen that really happened in the Nyanza counties for a very long time. But with devolution, we have seen so many things happen, even if they are not to that percentage that we love, but at least there is some work going on. Now, regarding the transparency in the county and why the counties are over-relying on the funds that are allocated centrally, it's very important to look at or highlight some of the challenges that we are facing, our counties are facing. One of them is we do not adhere to strict budget laws. We make laws with ambitions, very ambitious budgets, but with no realistic revenue collection avenues. And some of those projects are non-essential. For example, you see there is a governor who has a lot of money allocated to building governor's residence at the expense of ECD teachers being paid. You see, the governors are collecting revenues, but there is nothing we can see from what they collect from the public. And then what does that mean? The public, who are the main source of revenue, they develop a cold feet and they start evading taxes. And the government, the county governments also participate or abet the evasion by creating loopholes and by not creating very transparent revenue collection mechanism. That is what has really led to the counties actually crunching. One of the important things that you need to note, for example, I'll use Homa Bay because I come from Homa Bay. There is a small village or a small town called Sindo. Sindo houses Victory Farm. That is one of the biggest fish farms that we have in Kenya. The other day, the president was at Victory Farm launching and giving them a certificate. I am very sure you've seen very many Victory Farm shops here. There is one over a leading beach there called Wadianga Beach, where you'll get omena and very fish, because its borders are Lake Victoria, major part of it. It has very many quarries, and you can do agriculture. There is a lot of fishing going on. There is a lot of quarry works going on, but there is no road. For example, that which is basically those county roads, they collect a lot of revenues, but there is nothing that can be shown. And so you find that locality is locked. So if we can get a return or a way that the county government can account for what they already have, then it would even boost public confidence in terms of revenue collection. The other thing is the counties can also consider entering into public-private partnerships with a view of enhancing their revenues so that we do not overly rely on the funds, so that when the funds come, they can deal, for example, with recurrent expenditure and develop, of course, the recurrent expenditure. That is also something so that is quite alarming. When we have such structures, when we have innovations in the counties, then we will not be overcrying of a right. I know this is a right, but we shall also be having other avenues to develop our counties. Another thing is a reduction of embezzlement of funds. There are so many travels. Members of county assembly have gone to whichever place, and there is no return there's no value of those travels and visits. They cannot account for what that visit really brought back to the county. So it's a matter of going and coming, but again, capacity in the county, in the county, because when we talk of such embezzlement of funds, we go also deep to the what Wakili was mentioning about the blackmail by elected leaders. It could be the leaders who are doing the oversight. For example, the senators, the members of National Assembly, and even the members of county assemblies. We have seen governors being impeached on flimsy reasons. And how do you survive? You have to buy them in. You have to pay them something. So I've been advocating, and I would always advocate that there should also be very clear guidelines on impeachment of a governor, so that it's not used as an avenue to blackmail the governor, because if you blackmail the governor, the next thing is that it will try to pay a little coins here and there to buy the silence of these governors at the expense of what? At the expense of the devolution. The last thing that I also want to mention is the auditing of those counties. Thorough auditing. We have very many ghost workers who are collecting money. There are so many other projects which were initiated previously by governors who perhaps they have retired or lost. And because these governors are desirous of making new legacies, they will abandon projects that have taken billions of money, and because they do not want to associate themselves with those projects, they start their own. Then in a cycle of, let's say, 5 years, they lose the seat, another governor comes. So we have very many stalled projects. And that is why these are things that we need to cover. If we cover this, then the cry and the hues of having the counties not funded, it will be a thing of the past. So the county bosses, the county assemblies should stand to their mandate. They should do their oversight with goodwill and with utmost trust. The governors should stand to their mandate. The National Assembly should play their role. It's not a matter of sympathy. It's a matter of constitutional provision. It's a matter of right that the counties have to be funded. And when we do this, we'll be able to improve the percentage. Right now the percentage is good. I'll tell you, devolution works in some of the counties. Perhaps those who come from counties that were in government long ago, they will not appreciate. But someone like me who comes from the interior side of Suba, Sindo, I'll tell you that devolution has greatly worked in Homa Bay County, especially over this new, I mean, from the year 2017 coming towards 2022. We have seen very good works going on.
Yes. All right. Before I come to you, Sosion, I want you to tell me, you know, every Kenyan at any county level expects essential services to work and economic growth. What does all this mean for devolution?
Yeah, I think if we can be able to make devolution work, Kenyans will be a very happy lot, because the only problem that we have is that devolution is actually not working. But I also forgot to tell you that sometimes we have some kind of money released, like we have money released to the counties.
Yes.
Out of the money that is released in the county, 30% should go to development.
Yes.
So assuming now the county builds a hospital.
Yeah.
And if it builds a hospital, then it requires some nurses, some other people. But the government again next year does not release money to employ those nurses.
Yeah.
So we still have that perpetual problem. It is something that requires to be well thought, and once it is well thought, I think it can really help this nation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. We wanted to respond to this.
We've debated, we'll keep talking, but I think it's good to look at the way forward.
Yes.
From the real data that is coming and the gaps that we're experiencing. Number one, the annual conference of governors need to be escalated to be a more serious, all-inclusive audit forum where hard questions are asked. And with the view of focusing on three things. Number one, strengthening oversight so that then the Senate that was created by the Constitution to oversight the county must be empowered. So that then we see programs and activities of the Senate pivoting back to effectively oversighting the operations of the counties. Number two, systematic creation of revenue streams to the county, whether by own generation or through partnership with the other development partners and also from the taxpayers. And we must accept, for us to develop our country, we need to escalate our taxes upwards. It's going to be painful to the citizens, but the return in terms of value of services. You can imagine if all the households will be able to get free quality health care at all times, then it means they're not spending anything. Quality education at the doorstep of the household, then it means they're not spending anything. And food is available in plenty because that sector shall have received a lot of investment and direction. So allocation of revenue must be deliberate. And the revenue allocated must be accounted to the last cent. So that then we have to turn around and reconfigure how county budgets are executed, are planned, executed, and expended. And very lastly, we must accept to criminalize economic crimes without defending anybody. And for me, at this point, I support impeachments when they have legitimate grounds of violation of the law, mismanagement, and all aspects. I think we got to be very serious and bite. If we did that, in a space of 5 years, we'll witness tremendous development. And I've always recommended within the space of education that it is now time we transfer the role of schools infrastructure at all levels to the counties and give counties sufficient money so that they do that. Even the school transport system, so that schools do not have the trouble of fundraising to buy buses. That can be looked at as a futuristic thing. Maybe in 20 years, county government should be able to take that. We must have a master plan on how to progress and grow the operations of the county, maybe within a period of 10, 20 years. So, and effectively, as the economy grows. Because now we are devolving even manufacturing, value addition, and production to that level. So that counties can have factories and aggregation of their goods and transportation and targeting the market. If we are deliberate and we do that without promoting corruption, but this one requires keeping our system clean so that there's no corruption both at the national and at the county, and we are very deliberate in punishing. And I expect lawyers not to move to courts to go and defend corrupt individuals. So the ball goes back to the lawyers.
We have to work.
I know you have to work, but why can't we have situations where these economic crime individuals, corrupt individuals, are convicted within time and punished?
Yes, we have to be defended.
I want to give each one of you a minute to give your final submission because we are out of time, and I'll start with you, Akili.
Well, I think society comes with a multifaceted approach that must congregate and converge into one national psyche. Development, peace, stability, and of course what the country holds itself out there within the entire Committee of Nations. I do think that Kenya is a critical society of itself internally. We have a robust critical approach and movement in this country. Article 1 being the most supportive article, because notwithstanding the leaders that are put into offices, because they are never perfect. They come from us, they come from society. We put them there, sometimes even symbolically. But we oversight them directly because we've given the powers to ourselves. I encourage Kenyans that they must continue to pump fear into their leadership, because it is only fear that will be the most guaranteed way in which leadership will listen. If you give comfort to your leader, comfort, it means the leader then becomes larger than the office, refuses to look at the office as an office of service, but an office of power and enrichment.
Okay.
So until Kenyans they become more robust in oversight, as Kenyans, the leadership will continue to look at themselves as opportunity for enrichment for themselves. So it doesn't matter who we put in leadership. Eventually, it is Kenyans to continue to pump fear into the hearts of those in leadership.
Dr.
Yeah, I would want to say that the leaders need to realize that the political landscape in this nation has changed, and the methodologies that were being used previously can no longer work. So they need to learn with that.
Okay.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa Sossion.
Like the Prime Minister of Singapore said, if you want to change Singapore, keep the system clean. Keep the system clean. He said very strongly. Look at Singapore, where it has gone. We've always talked about the Asian tigers, South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, and the rest. They were very deliberate. They punished corruption, and they had master plans, strategic plans for their country. I think it is time we reason and sober up as a country and consider the best economic future for our country. That will ensure jobs and decency of life to our citizens.
Yes. Okay. Wakili Wasaga, tukimalizia.
Life is very hard for ordinary Kenyans. And when you hear people talk on the streets, your relatives, your friends, it is a clear show that life is very difficult. And it calls upon the government.
Okay, Nambio, your microphone has gone off. But thank you for making time. Thank you for making time. That is Wakili Peter Wasaga, who is an advocate of the High Court, and also Dr. John Mukundi, who is a political analyst, Wakili George Kithi, an advocate of the High Court too, and Honorable Wilson Sossion, former nominated MP and also former NATSEC Gen. This is where we end these 2 hours of robust conversation here on Good Morning Kenya. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Mike Migwe. Keep it KBC Channel 1. This is Good Morning Kenya. Good morning.